The Adult Ballet Studio is a podcast featuring conversations with the empowering voices of the adult ballet community, a world where passion has no limits and dreams can take flight. My name's Elizabeth Blossfield, and I'm an adult ballet dancer and your host. Welcome to the studio. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the Adult Ballet Studio, everybody. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today. His story about discovering ballet is a story of passion, persistence, and self-discovery. And it started in the most unexpected place, a shopping center in Waikiki back in 1982. At just 15 years old, our guest, adult ballet dancer Rob MacCaul, stumbled upon a ballet studio and was mesmerized by the movement, grace, and beauty of the dancers inside. That moment sparked a lifelong passion for him, which would take him from dance classes in Pasadena all the way to Seattle and eventually the mountains of north central Washington, where he lives now. I love Rob's story so much because it's about so much more than dance. It's about identity, courage, and embracing authenticity. He shared with me how ballet helped him discover and express his gender identity, reconnect with himself and others after a difficult period of time, and it taught him that he can still challenge himself and learn new things in adulthood. He shared that he found community in the ballet studio as well, which is one of my favorite things to talk about with adult ballet because it's such a warm and supportive community. From stepping into a ballet class for the first time to performing on stage as an adult to even taking the remarkable step of going on pointe at age 58, Rob is truly a testament to the beauty that comes from following your heart and your passions. I'm so honored to welcome him to the podcast, and I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. Check it out. I kind of just wanted to start at the beginning, if that's okay, because I know that you had this moment, as a teenager in Waikiki, watching a dance class that really captured you. So could you talk about what you felt in that moment and why it was so memorable to you?
Sure, absolutely. Be happy to. Yeah, it was definitely one of those moments where curiosity got the best of me. Literally, just like walking down the street, I heard music coming from this dance studio. And I really just thought to myself, gee, what's going on in there? I'm just kind of curious. And I walked upstairs to the studio and was just instantly captivated by what was going on. And I must have been staring through the window for, 15, 20 minutes when the teacher finally recognized me and came over on a break. And she asked me questions of like, have you danced ballet before? Are you interested? And I said, no, absolutely. I have not ever even, considered it. And she said, oh, well, if you'd like, you can come on in and you can help out during the class. And I was just, why not? Okay, I've got nothing better to do. And so I walked in. She said, okay, we'll just stand here in the middle of the floor and each girl will just promenade over and stand up on point and you can help brace them and support them. And I'm like, okay, sounds great to me. Let's do this. And so each girl came over and I saw myself in the mirror and was like, my gosh, I think I've just found a new passion in my life that I think needs exploring. In that one, like, lightning bolt moment, ballet found me. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea, but wow. I knew right then and there that when I got home from vacation, I needed to find out more about this. I was just like, wow, I just want to surround myself with all of this. Just everything there is to know about ballet, how the movement is, the artfulness, the gracefulness, and all of that, including the costuming, the dancewear, everything.
I love that story so much. It's so inspiring for so many reasons because ballet is such an incredible art form, and you can tell that you were really drawn in by the beautiful lines it creates, the movements, the music. And it's something that's echoed on this podcast over and over that ballet found me. I think especially with arts-based disciplines like this, it's such a calling that I feel like that really is how it is. It just kind of finds you and you realize that you want it to be a part of your life.
Yeah.
I know. So you took some first steps toward ballet back home in Pasadena. And you
Mhm.
mentioned kind of at that point in your life feeling like you needed to maybe keep it a secret. You weren't ready to fully explore yourself as a ballet dancer. So can you talk about that struggle and how you sort of overcame the mental blocks that you were facing with ballet at the very beginning?
Yeah. So, I was definitely on a mission when I got home to find out, gee, where can I take classes? What can I do? What's required? Am I starting too late? I just had all those questions, but I really kind of just wanted to start and figure it out. And I also just was like, okay, I need to figure out what's required. What do I need to wear? And I found a local great little dance store called the Red Shoes right there in Pasadena. And the owner and her daughter both immediately just welcomed me with open arms and said, sure, come on in. Here's what you need. Here's some local studios you might want to check out. Only being 15 at the time and not having my driver's license, I could only kind of go within a certain amount radius that I could bicycle or walk. But I did find some nearby. And lo and behold, as I kind of told my parents about this, of like, oh, this is really what I'd like to do, the suggestion or notion of, well, maybe that's not what you really should be doing, that rang the bell initially of, yeah, maybe I should kind of keep this under wraps. I didn't want to, but I was also just deathly afraid of what other people might think. I attended an all boys high school at the time, and I just like, gosh, I don't want to be bullied by this. So, but I knew down deep, this is something I still needed to pursue somehow. It just had, seeped into my veins. And so I did try, I just took classes where I could just to kind of get the experience and just to kind of get the feeling of what I first saw in that studio back in Waikiki. And I did. It wasn't as I couldn't pursue it as normally as I would like to or consistently. So it's just it was a difficult, that burden of feeling different and feeling, like, oh, this is, people are going to talk and all this kind of stuff really, dampened my spirit, so to speak. But I think lo and behold, because that energy and that spirit was still there, I waited until, I took some classes during college. In fact, part of my communications major was a dance class, and that was a lot of fun. But again, it was kind of like, all right, I had to do it because, it was part of my major. I had a blast, enjoyed it, but when I finally took it kind of more seriously, it was actually a community college class offered through PCC, through Pasadena City College. And I'm like, all right, I just got to do this because it's been calling. And I had a blast. I did like at least 2 or 3 semesters of it and just enjoyed every minute of it. Still have great memories to this day. Learned all that was definitely the first part of like feeling like I really starting to gain some of the foundations, some of the terms, different terminologies, choreography, and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of helped lay some of that groundwork. Then, life kind of took over. I ended up moving up to the Seattle area. Then in about 2004, when I was facing a divorce, I was kind of like, all right, Rob, what is it to get yourself back out there to be social. What is it that you would like to do? And the first word that came in my mouth was ballet. I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. I love that. I need to just get out there and be social. And so in the area that I was at, I looked around for some different studios and found one conveniently close by that was run by Marco Carrabba, who was an accomplished ballet dancer with the Pacific Northwest Ballet, and he studied in New York, and just was amazing, and immediately was like, yeah, come on in, this is great, we would love to have you. We've got an adult class. We did a couple of private lessons just to kind of see where I was at, and then we just kind of went from there, and we just had this fun group of adults that all just were there for the same reason. We just all felt the need to dance, and we all loved ballet in all of its forms. And it was the one place where I just felt that instant camaraderie among like-minded people. And I just thought that was just like, okay, this is great. I'm reestablishing myself, finding my purpose again, and just, moving forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that's an incredible story. And I love the way that you were looking for a place to belong within ballet. And then you found it in the adult ballet community, which was my experience as well. There's so much, as you said, camaraderie, just being among like minded people and doing it for the passion of it, first and
Mhm.
foremost. And you, as you mentioned, you're based in Seattle now, and you're doing two things, which I love. You mentioned that you've been performing as an adult in recitals, which there aren't that many opportunities for adults. I'm excited to talk about that. And then also in a few minutes, I want to talk about your journey to Pointe, because you're dancing on Pointe as well. Before we get to that, I was wondering if you could just talk about what it was like to step on stage at that time in your life and start doing these recitals, what you're gaining from it, and what you would say to other adults who are maybe a little bit nervous about taking that leap of performing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, that was something I had always thought about. I'm like, gee, could I take this and could I actually perform on stage? And when our teacher and the studio were planning for a spring recital, they're like, hey, adults, would you love to do a piece? And we all just like leapt. We were all like, yes, absolutely. We would absolutely love to do a piece. This would be fantastic. And so we started out and rehearsed it and did this great little combination with, I think there was about 7 of us. And I remember distinctly when I got on stage after rehearsals, we're doing this, it's live. And I remember all up to that, I wasn't nervous at all. I'm like, no, no, I'm fine. The moment I heard the first chord of music, I'm like, my ankles just kind of went a little weak. And I'm like, uh-oh. But the
Became
first,
real.
yeah, I'm like, okay, reality just hit. And at the same time, as soon as I took my first step, I'm like, okay, now I've got my footing. This is good. And the next thought that crossed my brain was, you can't be nervous. You shouldn't be nervous. You're up here. They're not going to know one way or another if you flub up a little bit, as long as you just keep smiling, dancing, holding yourself properly. And also, the overwhelming thought I had at the time was, what are other people going to think? The thought that I had to myself at the time was, they're going to go, wow, look at that guy. He's up there having a great time and he's just performing. And I'm like, that gave me so much more internal confidence to be able to go in and fully dance and have fun. And so that just was such an amazing gift to be able to get there, get all the way through the piece, and you hear the applause. It's like you're absolutely sky high. I mean, it felt so tremendous. And I think that would be my advice to anyone considering wanting to go on do a recital is just go out there and have fun. Number one, you're doing it because it's your passion and it's just something in you. Number two, they're not going to know. Even if you had a major flip, they're still going to love you. They're still going to applaud. They're still going to smile. Just go and do the best you can, and it doesn't really even at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other people think. As long as you're out there and you're doing it, do it, because it'll pay such dividends in the long run. So yeah, there's always that little bit of fright, that little bit of stage fright, but if you can capture that and kind of use that as to help motivate you, it was great. And I always kind of like, whenever I'm approaching something that's like, this might be a little difficult or this might be a little uncomfortable, I just kind of remember back to that and go, all right, well, you can do the best you can, and that's what we can hope for.
And I think that's great advice because you're right. The audience doesn't notice half the stuff that we notice in our own heads when we're on stage. But also, I relate to that so much because it's that spike in anxiety right at the very beginning, as the curtain goes up or the lights go up or whatever it is. But as soon as you start getting into something that you love and doing it, that all just melts away. And I find that's true with performing. It's true for me with this podcast. I get nervous about these discussions and then we get into talking about what we love. And that goes away. So I think, yeah, that's great advice. Just kind of take the plunge, do it for yourself, and it'll pay
Yeah.
off. Yeah. And I know you also mentioned that you started point work in your 50s, which is an incredible milestone in ballet. I know point work is so hard. So, what's been the most rewarding and challenging parts about that for you?
Oh my gosh. Well, one, just the mere thought of point was just like, oh my gosh, if I could ever do this, this would just be so cool, because I love the the gracefulness, or as it appears, it's so graceful. It was definitely one of those kind of personal milestones that I'm like, could I do this? And when I talked to my teacher about it, she was like, oh, absolutely. We just we'll get you to the point where you're more strong, your ankles are ready. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's do it. And she helped me figure out what shoes to get, based on size, based on my strength and stuff like that. And one of the things that I discovered too was moldable toe pads are amazing for adults. I'm not sure if your audience or anybody's aware of these, but they're like a dental impression, but they're made as a toe pad that goes inside the point shoe. And especially for an older adult, wow, do they make a difference. I mean, I've tried the regular pads and stuff, but because it's molded to your foot, everything is just like perfect. I'm like, okay, these things are so helpful, because now I feel like with the proper shoe and shank, I can actually get through an entire point class and my feet don't hurt.
That's a great tip. Yeah, for any of our listeners who are interested in going on point, definitely check those out.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, I think I had saved the Perfect Fit is the name of the toe pads. I'll send you the link.
Perfect fit. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, if you send me the link, I'll include it in the show notes and anyone, who wants to check it out. That's
Great.
great. And speaking of dancewear, I know earlier in our conversation we were talking about some of your hesitation about starting ballet as a young boy. And I think this isn't something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast. So I was really grateful that you were willing to share that part of your journey, because I think, there is, ballet has been such a stereotypically feminine art form for so long. And it really didn't start that way in Europe. It started as a male dominated art form and then kind of evolved from there. So I think there is, unfortunately, still kind of a stigma when boys or adult men want to join ballet. And I can imagine that takes, a mental toll. But you mentioned to me not only that part of your journey, but also dance wear and costumes and how that became a significant part of your finding your identity in ballet. So, can you
Mhm.
talk about how exploring that aspect of ballet kind of helped connect you with your gender identity? And how did it feel to find such acceptance and freedom in the dance studio with that?
It definitely, like I said early on, when I was, initially struck with this amazing feeling, overwhelming feeling about I wanted to discover everything about ballet. One of the main things was I loved seeing how leotards and tights just formed to the body. It brought the art form to life and how it just sculpted the body. That was also just an overwhelmingly driving force to discover what would that feel like? And what does that feel like to me? Is that something that I even, would like to consider trying on? And I was like, yeah, I think I would. And one of the great aspects of finding community at the Red Shoes dance store was again so welcoming by Alice and her daughter Cynthia. They were like, yeah, come on in. This is open. You can try on anything you want. And
Yeah.
they would offer, or like, this might look really cool on you, or you might really love this, and they would bring me different leotards, different costumes, and welcome me and say, that looks really cute on you. That looks great. And I just felt like I had just gained a superpower.
Yeah.
that this was like, okay, this is my hidden superpower. And so that always just drove me forward in my dance career, if you can call it that, my journey here. And I know when I finally had taken class at my first foundation class there at PCC, I just dressed kind of normally what other guys in the class would wear, and just tights and t-shirts and stuff like that. But really, when I was breaking out, and after I had been to my studio with Marco Corraba, I had discovered another studio in Seattle near the U District that was run through the University of Washington's extension program. Aptly named, it was featured at the Adult Ballet Studio. And they had adult only classes throughout the week in all different levels. And it was fantastic. It set up just like you would expect any great ballet studio. It had a pianist. And so we had live music. Again, the most welcoming teachers. In fact, one in particular, Kristen, she was just great. And I was probably into it for about 6 months or so. And I asked her, and she's like, absolutely, wear what you want to wear, whatever you're comfortable with. I think it was my birthday, and I was actually taking class on my birthday. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go for it and just wear some, pink tights and, a black leotard, just to kind of like the classic look. And I show up to class, and everyone was like, wow, Rob, that's amazing. You look fantastic. And going into class and just having that knowledge and that feeling was incredible. And then being able to move, it felt different. It felt better. It felt like I'm home. All of those feelings just kind of clicked into place, and it was incredible. I was like, I'd never done that, and being able to experience, the movements that I was used to so far, dressed in more feminine attire, and that was just amazing, and I loved every minute of it.
Thank you for sharing that. That's such an important experience. And I love the way that you describe ballet as your superpower, and that it felt like coming home when you finally were able to really connect with yourself in a dance studio. I think that's so important. And I want that for everyone. I do want to call out one thing that you said. You mentioned you don't know if you can call it a dance career, but I think you call it that. You're performing, you've dedicated so much of your life to this art form. It's much more than a hobby. So I think it is your dance career. And I'm really happy to be talking to you about this journey. And I know you also mentioned to me that you've been really inspired by, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Le Ballet Trocadero de Monte Carlo, which is an
Yeah.
all-male drag ballet troupe. And they sort of parody the conventions of romantic and classical ballet. So What did it mean for you to see them sort of embrace both masculinity and femininity on stage? And how has that sort of influenced your approach to your own dancing?
Well, number one, when I very first saw them, they just blew me away by their athleticism, their grace, their fluidity, and their just comedic timing and talent was just, I'm such I love comedy and I love how they blended, somebody asked me, they said, well, what do how can you describe it? And I said, I said it's hard to describe because you forget that you're actually watching male dancers on stage
Yeah.
because you're just captivated by their presence and by their artistry and their you just all of a sudden you're watching them and you're like, oh, I'm just watching a ballerina, or I mean, gender just dropped away, which was just awesome. I highly encourage anyone um, just to go out there and just enjoy their show. And I love how they break through the stereotypical stuff and break conventions and make asides to the audience, but also how incredible they are as dancers and athletes with such strength and ability. And it just really it inspired me that, wow, okay, there is potential for people that are like me, that just kind of are like gender neutral and just want to just explore everything there is out there, and to see this troupe out there just nailing it. It was just, yeah, it just blew me away. Had I the had I discovered them earlier in my younger adult life, I'd be like, hey, I want to go try out for them.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's so inspiring the way that they're, as you said, breaking these boundaries and sort of paving the way for more inclusivity in ballet. And they inspired you, and now you're, engaging with ballet and sharing your story. So you're passing that on and doing the same thing. And I know that you've taken on a lot of new roles as well in your adult ballet journey. One of them is that you joined the board for the Children's Dance Theater in Seattle.
Mhm.
So, what has that experience been like, and what sort of led you to that opportunity?
Actually, it's the Children's Dance Theater here in North Central Washington of Okanogan
Okay.
County. And my teacher, Lori Wilson, actually runs her studio, and she also runs the Children's Dance Theater. And so she asked me, she's like, I would love to have you on as our board member and to be able to bring your perspective to our studio, as well as especially to our dance program for the kids in the area. And I'm like, oh, absolutely. I would love to, because I just, again, I love to surround myself with just everything that the dance world can offer, and I love to share my perspectives, with our other board members and help kind of plan out our different programs and stuff going forward. So it's been a fun opportunity, and it also provided me this last spring to be able to do a little, again, performing on my own, a non-dance role, but I was still able to play and have fun up on stage, which was great.
That sounds like a really rewarding experience all around. So that's cool that you've been able to find that opportunity. And what are your future goals in ballet? You've accomplished so much so far. So what are you looking to do next?
I would love to definitely dance more and perform more on stage. One of the things that I feel like I've missed out in my career so far is partnering. I had that very first experience, the very first time in Waikiki, to be able to partner with somebody. Going forward, it would just be to continue dancing, to continue movement. I think it's just so vital and so great. One of the things that I come away with anytime that I'm in class is, and the thing that I love that just keeps me going is, I get into class and that's the only thing I think about. It's meditative. It's just everything falls away. Whatever's going on in the world, it's gone. It's just me, movement, even if it's you're like, gosh, I'm not quite perfecting that, or gee, I'm tired, or, something's not quite going right. It doesn't matter because you still get that chance to move and to be graceful, have fun. Again, that camaraderie, even if it's just, like right now I'm doing a lot more private lessons, but Lori and I have this great relationship, and we still have this amazing camaraderie, and she helps me so much in terms of realizing my potential moving forward. Also, the thing that I've also learned about it too is I'm much more of a visual learner than I yes, I can read a textbook, I can read things, but if I can see it, then that's where I can really help excel. And even if, down to like the little nuances and stuff like that. So it's really helped me, and I just feel continuing to get to know my body better and kind of have that communication with your muscles, and you know developing your lines and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, as I kind of you know continue on, those would definitely be my things that I want to kind of focus on, and more of it is like, yeah, I'm not quite sure. Whatever happens, I'm there for it. And I've been so grateful that moving out to, basically I'm in the mountains, and but finding ballet community nearby has been so incredibly helpful, and it's just, yeah, it's been wonderful.
I love that piece of your story too, because I know for the longest time, especially with adult ballet, it was hard to find outside of the big metro areas, a studio that supported adult dancers. And it's really cool to me that you've had the most inspiring instructors at the Red Shoes, I think you said, the dancewear studio. They were really supportive. And even, where you are now, that makes me think that things are changing a lot. And I think that makes a huge difference. And I know you mentioned at the beginning, when you first came back to ballet in adulthood, feeling like, am I too old to start ballet? Which I think is a common sentiment. How has that changed for you now? How have you sort of challenged that notion? And what do you hope that others gain from hearing your story about studying ballet as an adult?
Yes, I definitely had that. All that self doubt you toss into your head, and now what I've found is it's motivated me to stay fit, to understand that movement is essential in my life, and that trying to challenge yourself, like things that I never thought possible, I'm able to do. And I never thought that, you know, again, I'd be able to stand up on point and balance. Like, if somebody had told me that, years ago, I'd be like, yeah, right.
Yeah, and
um,
you're doing it.
and I'm doing it. And even like different regular, like combinations. And when I first see them, I'm like, oh, yeah, there's no way I can, either leap or turn or that kind of stuff. And turns are always challenging, but it's like when you get those little nuggets, those little pieces of information that just kind of click into place at the right time, then you're like, oh, wait, I just found out the magic key to this, or that works for me to be able to do chaîné turns across the floor, or you know and not feel like you're getting dizzy and you're gonna, toss your cookies.
I feel that way too, especially about turns. They're so finicky. One day you can have a great turn day, the next day you're falling out of every turn. But what I've learned from that is, even on bad turning days, it's okay to make mistakes and to feel like you're failing, because you're always learning something that you're going to take with you, and then it's going to make your dancing better. So I think, it's important to kind of let go and just let whatever happens in class happen, and then learn from it and move forward. But thank you so much for sharing so much. I think our audience is going to feel really inspired. And we've spoken about some things that we haven't had a chance to unpack yet on this podcast. So I'm really happy to be talking about them with you. And we have one last section, the Petit Allegro section. It's just quick, fun questions if you're okay with doing that.
You bet.
Well, we talked a lot about dance wear. So I guess to start off, I'm curious, what's your favorite piece of dance wear for either in class or on stage?
I would definitely say my favorite piece would be definitely a leotard. Even a fashion style leotard. I love some of the brands like Jewel Dancewear, Cloud and Victory, just make amazingly supportive dancewear. And as far as costumes, nothing beats an amazing bodice, leotard with the shimmering tutu and stuff like that. It's just like, this is amazing.
Yeah, of course, it's so classic ballet. That's great.
Exactly.
What's one thing that you have to have in your dance bag at every class or rehearsal?
Oh, water, definitely.
Essential. You
It's
definitely need that.
essential. Yeah, that and now the moldable toe pads. Those are definitely essential.
Is there a particular ballet that you would love to perform in at some point?
Yes, I would love to be able to do Giselle. I think would be an amazing. It just that is such a beautiful storied ballet, and it just has so many different nuances, and yeah, that would be fantastic.
That's a gorgeous ballet, one of my favorites for sure. And then the last question I always ask everybody, in a perfect world, what would ballet look like?
I would love to see ballet be as open and inclusive as it's anything. I would love to be able to see it break through all gender norms, and still have the basic structure and foundation of ballet, but to be able to add new dimensions to it. I think it's ripe for the art form to grow and just have some amazing just potential where like what the Crocs are doing. Gender is just evaporated away, and it's just bodies in motion, and expressing themselves in you know whatever the emotions are and stuff like that. So I just really would love to see that type of movement and growth, and just to be able to see that move forward to be unconventional.
I agree. Yeah. And I love asking this question because everybody has a different answer that's so unique and it's all such an important part of this conversation. So, thank you so much for spending so much time with me and sharing your story. And thank you for all of the work that you're doing in ballet as well to move it forward. And just the last question, where can people find you if they're interested in connecting with you, on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, not as much on other social media platforms at the moment, but you can find me under my first name, last name, or first initial last name on Instagram.
That's great. Yeah, we'll include that in the show notes as well. And you're so inspiring. I love talking to you. I'm so happy that we met. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it too, and so happy to share my story. So I really appreciate the time.
I loved speaking with Rob so much. We met through social media, and when he reached out to tell me his story, I just knew that it needed to be shared. I'm so happy he was so open with us on this podcast because he said some things about courage, identity, and persistence that we all need to hear wherever we are in our pursuit of ballet. I'll include links to connect with him on Instagram in the show notes, and you can always find me on social media as well at eblosfield, or send me an email at theadultballetstudio@gmail.com. I also wanted to tell you that the Adult Ballet Studio podcast is now on YouTube. You can find all previous episodes as well as new ones and short video clips from these interviews on my profile at eblosfield91. I hope you'll check it out. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. Thanks to Rob for taking the time to speak with me and to all of you for tuning in this month. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review and rating if you like what you hear. And tune in next month on March 4th for another special guest. In the meantime, happy dancing, everybody, and see you at the bar.